See, Putin has been planning the destruction of America and the Western way of living for decades now. And we typically think that it's going to come in the form of a nuclear attack, that World War III will be started and instigated from Putin using nuclear weapons or maybe even biological weapons. So I think many of us miss the clear signs and indicators of what Putin has actually done leading up to the invasion of Ukraine, leading up to this moment in history, which could be a pivotal moment in a change of powers from the United States being the only supreme power in the world to being dethroned by maybe Russia, maybe even China. And I think that when we take a hard look at what has happened and how things have transpired throughout the course of these years, that we have been ignoring them and basically putting them by the wayside as something that is a minuscule sort of thing. Not only that, is our government kind of pushes it under the rug as almost inconsequential, insignificant to what is actually going on here. And when I say this has been, decades in the making, it's been decades in the making in the open, in something that is not being hidden by Russia, by Putin. It's been actually put out there for display, put out there for the world to see, for us to see. And I believe the next attack will be a cyber attack. And what I mean by that is taking down major infrastructure institutions that help us function on a daily life. And that's not to say that it's going to basically only disable your computer or disrupt the internet. It will do that, but it will do much more than that. It will disrupt every single thing that helps us run as an economy. Banking systems will go offline. The internet will be completely shut down. See, we've imposed these sanctions on Russia, right? And we think that they are not going to do anything about it. We think that they're going to just sit there on their hands and let us destroy their economy without any consequences. Now, I believe that we're already in a world war. Economically, we're in a world war. If you really think about it, we waged war the second that we decided to levy heavy sanctions that have never been imposed on Russia before, banned all of foreign exports, foreign currencies, shutting down their banking system, which is a major thing, which many, Russians now don't have access to their funds or finances, other than being able to circumvent the system via VPN so that they can download those apps, so that they can use their different applications that are limited based on geolocation. But the point of the matter is, in this situation, is we have done things now that are irreversible in a way to Russia, regardless if we come back and say, oh yeah, hey, we're going to allow you to basically go about your daily life as usual. We're going to lift all the sanctions and everything's going to be fine. Ain't no problem. We can't go back to that now. We've already gone past that point. And so now Russia is looking for ways and opportunities to implement what they have been inserting into our infrastructure, into our government entities and major corporations, defense companies. This has all been online. This has all been published as far as the attempts by Russia's hackers to get into our systems. And initially we recognize it, right? We recognize that Russia has hacked into a specific major corporation, and we take notice, right? And then suddenly it disappears. This is not something that I'm just speculating because I follow it. I follow it because I'm interested to see, what results come in. I actually have a cybersecurity background. I used to work at Proofpoint, and so I was trained to help companies secure their data, prevent data loss prevention, and also prevent any sort of breach in their back-end infrastructure. And that means various ways that these hackers try to get up the chain of command, which is very simplistic way. If we're going for these companies that, are generally using these types of software. Now there's bigger corporations that are more enterprise accounts, and so those companies that have the financial means and the reasoning to secure their data even more so are the ones where it gets very technically challenging, because there's more money invested into attacking them, or more time and more effort. There's a more invested motive to attack, I would say, let's say Northrop Grumman, which is basically a manufacturer of military technology. It supplies, the government with new capabilities as far as weaponry and armament. So if Russia wanted to hack into Northrop Grumman to take blueprints or rob them of finances, that's all within a capability. It's a target for them, right? Their reward is much greater than if you went to a mom and pop shop. If you went to Dollar Tree, if you're trying to hack into Dollar Tree to destroy America, it's not going to really not going to work, right? So that doesn't make any sense. But where it does make sense is to target top secret information that is either one vital to national security or to give Russia an advantage in technological advancement, give them insight into what we're doing. But that's a simple thing that is obvious for people to think about when they initially think of somebody trying to initiate a cyber attack. They think of, they'll shut down their systems for a short amount of time, but they'll figure it out. They'll figure out who is is hacking them, and they'll clean the systems entirely. This is completely false. It's not true at all. And what Russia has been doing and consistently been showing is, we can go back to the 2016 election and the election fraud due to Russia's influence in our election. And first off, no consequences came from that. Like, we didn't impose any sanctions. We didn't take any countermeasurements against them to tell them that it's not okay for them to do that, right? We think that Russia is the only one playing in this game of influence on Western culture and ideology and American way of living. That's not true. China's in cohorts with them. They are working together, but Russia is the one who is the main culprit as far as they're the current ones who's waging war at this moment in time. And so Russia has been slowly attacking our infrastructure, playing manipulation games, disrupting our political system, which they have every invested motive to disrupt our political system. You see bigger political tension than you've ever seen in American history at this moment in time. People are more divided than ever, and you can only attribute that to one thing, is to propaganda pushed from foreign entities to insert their ideologies into our culture. And so by doing this, and by installing this into the younger generation, and to manipulate the political figures into thinking that, your election is stolen and you lost. Well, if you think about that really hard, it makes sense that, they would have an invested motive. They did it in 2016. They can do it again. They can do it every single year. And maybe none of us will notice any of that. But you know what that does? It helps people lose faith in democracy itself. It makes people lose faith in democracy. And that's on both sides, the left and the right. The left is losing faith in democracy as far as holding the right accountable for their plot to overthrow the government on January 6th. And then the right is saying, our election is stolen. And they're losing faith in the voting process, right? Both sides are sort of having issues with democracy itself. And they think there's change that needs to be done in their own rights based on their beliefs and perspectives. They think they're in the right, but what they're doing actually is dividing America and destroying it internally. And this is all through propaganda perpetuated by both China and Russia. And it's being purposely done. This is just a basic psychological tactic. This has nothing to really do with the cyber warfare, other than they're able to influence social media. They're able to influence advertisements, and they're able to create bot accounts, which is a cyber warfare tactic. and mass spread information and disinformation and to cause tension and conflict. I mean, if you think about an example, Twitter, thousands of people comment on a post, a unified message. You don't really see any counter arguments, and you usually see some sort of counter argument, and I mean by this like a small subset of counter arguments. There's definitely some public opinion which is unified in a way, but there's also you should see at least 30% of that be counter to the belief that the belief that people are pushing, right? Because there's cancel culture right now, right? Like it's just very one-sided, where life isn't like that. It's very everybody has an opinion, so you can attribute that to bots sort of perpetuating one-sided story, and it's to the point that it's so good that these algorithms and these bots that are programmed to do so, they have endless scenarios of conversations that can be indistinguishable from a real person, and nor can you even prove or disprove that whoever is on the end of that Twitter account, are they a real person or not. You can't distinguish that, because half of these accounts have fake names and faces, and you can look up that individual all day long, but you won't find anything. It won't trace back to anything unless you understand how to possibly hack into their system, or trace electronical footprint of these accounts and see what they've been doing. Where do they stem from? That's a lot of work. Most people aren't willing to do that type of work. That's a form of warfare, and the unfortunate part is that we've been ignoring it and letting it fester and letting it grow. And then now we kind of see the negative side effects from it. And this is just very basic. If we take a look at the fact that they are implanting hidden triggers, worms, and viruses within these computers, and they stay dormant. It's deep inside these computers. It stays dormant inside these computers and these devices to activate during a certain time. When you hear about a defense contract company being hacked and then there's no news on the resolution of that, you can conclude a thing is that they don't know where the virus is. They haven't resolved it, or they don't want to let the hacker know that they've resolved it. But more likely than not, it's much harder to say that you have found the root of the breach in your security, because by the time that you have found that breach in security, they could have been in your system for months, for years sometimes, and you finally notice that there's something wrong. They made a misstep. Maybe your security system improved, so then you could tell finally, oh, there's a virus in your computer. It's doing this. It's collecting this data from your computer, and you wouldn't know how long it is that's been going on. So that's the danger in that. So all the while it's sitting in your computer, sifting through its data and spreading itself to these different avenues within a corporation, because what it does is you can simply send an email to your coworker, right? And if there was a virus on your computer, it can attach itself to that email. And then once you send that email to your coworker opens it up, and now they're infected. And the chain keeps going on, and that's how they infect the entire company. And so once they start doing that, then they can start taking measurements to basically implant themselves deep within the system itself and to really take root. It's like a tree, right? When you plant a tree, it's really not solid in its foundation yet, but over years and decades, it grows roots in many various directions, and it becomes much harder to uproot, and it becomes much harder to identify all of those roots and where they lead to. And so to uproot every single stem in the ground is much more difficult than if you were to pull it out when it was a baby, I guess you could say. So now it's a deep-rooted tree, a deep-rooted virus, a deep-rooted worm inside these infrastructures, and only waiting for an opportune moment to attack, only waiting for a moment like now where Russia says, oh, you destroyed my economy, I'm going to destroy your economy now. And it's going to be severe. And Putin said this. He said, if you guys keep meddling in us, America's going to pay a price like you've never seen before. And I believe that that threat is true. And one of the ways to do that is to completely annihilate American infrastructure as far as your banking system. If they flip a switch and all of the that goes offline, the electricity to your house, to power plants, to and they can do this, and to the cell towers. You don't have cell signal, you can't text anybody. The banking infrastructure is now completely compromised, and you can't make any transactions, much less even get the ATM on, and the bank tellers can't even connect to the internet. And they don't have electricity either. Once they flip that switch, I believe it's there. I believe that it's waiting to be initiated. It's just the right time to do so. Don't think that Russia is going to just let this slide. They're not going to let this slide. They're going to take action. Hopefully, you're prepared for it. Hopefully, we all are. And that preparedness comes from making sure that you have food storage, making sure that you have savings for eventuality that things go to shit. You still have money. And, that's not only, I'm not saying money in your bank account, because if the bank system closes, where are you going to you're going to be able to withdraw money? You're not. So, I mean, that's having cash stored somewhere in a safe place. That's having, you possibly could say gold. If, financial system goes down and cash is invaluable, I mean, it's a piece of paper, it doesn't really matter if you have that. But what I can say is, that's the extreme situation, but at least have cash on hand, at least have at least 2 months worth of food supply. And it doesn't have to be like you're eating fancy. Nah. This is like you eat rice and beans every day, and it's just like you're just getting the basic nutrition. That's the simplistic way. I mean, if you want to live lavishly, go ahead, store up that food. If you haven't already done so, I mean, it might be too late. Who knows? But that's what I really think is going to go down, and hopefully it doesn't come to that. But if it does come to that, at least you'll have the knowledge of what is to come and what can happen. And there's many other avenues that we could go down, but this is one of the ways I think that Russia could destroy American democracy.